When you're feeling all alone, only you to hold your own. No one there to help you, only there to hold you down. So stop, don't beat up yourself, 'cause it's everyone else. So don't look down, look up around, 'cause you are better. I can see that when the fire gets started, it takes a lot of tears to wash away. When they come and make you feel downhearted, don't hide away. And now it's feeling like the longest day. It's getting harder to find the will to stay. You gotta find the strength inside of you, so don't hide away.
What makes somebody a boy or a girl? I mean, it's physically obvious. However, what's on the outside doesn't necessarily match how somebody feels inside. David was born and raised as a girl until he hit puberty. At that point, he finally accepted that he identified as male. This made for some difficult times in high school as he faced discrimination and harassment from his peers. Many of his friends distanced themselves from him. His deep depression and self-harm made him and his family seek professional help. This is David's story.
My name is David. I'm 15 years old and I have one older sister. Me and my sister have a good relationship. We've been friends throughout my entire life. I've always been really into sports, music. Those are the kinds of things I found myself spending my time on. My family's great, really supportive throughout my whole childhood. They always supported me in doing things that I wanted to do, even if it went against the standard expectations in society.
Happy birthday to you.
I used to wish on birthday candles that I'd be born a boy somehow, and just always wish I was a boy. And I think that's something that was really, really holding me back.
That's right.
Happy birthday, darling.
So I'm transgender. I was born biologically female, but identify as male. I ended up coming out to my parents and my sister.
I'm a girl on the outside, but on the inside, I'm a boy. I can't keep living like this for the rest of my life. I want to live as a boy, not a girl.
Fortunately, they were really accepting. I was surprised because I come from a Russian background, which is not known to be the most accepting in those senses. Once I hit grade 7, I found myself starting to feel less like myself and more off all the time. I ended up seeing a therapist and got diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. I started to really struggle with my mental health, and I realized it was my gender identity. In the summer of grade 8, I decided to be out publicly as male. I got a haircut. It was on the last day of school. That was life-changing because it felt like such a release. It felt like all of this confusion in my childhood, feeling like I was living as someone who I wasn't, all went away. That was the day I started living as David. I decided to come out on a social network platform. So I made a new Facebook account. I just told people to add my new account. I got lots and lots of questions, but for the most part, people were supportive, especially my peers, people from school. Me and my sister were living with my grandparents for a bit.
What happened to your hair?
My grandparents, at least at the time, weren't so understanding of what I was struggling with. I felt so lost. I felt like I was in this big room of unknown. I was crying for no reason, which felt so confusing, but I was angry at myself and at the world. I was self-harming, and I was thinking to myself, why am I doing this? I really started to think about it, and I remember I'm seeing blood, and I'm thinking, I'm destroying myself. I'm destroying my own life, and people around me aren't aware, so no one can support me. I was just all day living in this mask, pretending to be someone who's not who I really felt like, pretending to be happy, pretending to be comfortable. Academically, I was doing worse. My marks were going down because how could I possibly focus when I'm constantly having this fear and I'm constantly hearing people calling me she, and it's like every time it was like a stab up my back. I felt so isolated and so lost and confused and upset. I can't say for sure that if I hadn't come out as transgender, I'd be here today. I don't think I would have. The way that all of this even came out was in school. At one point, I started crying. I just had a breakdown, and a teacher found me, and she talked with me, and she didn't understand at all, and neither did I, but she was just supporting me. She hugged me. She said, "What's wrong? Talk to me." She was the one who helped me access the social worker at my school, and that was my first steps towards getting help. Once I entered high school, I did find myself facing some bullying. The first incident, I was walking in the hall, and he yelled,
"You tranny."
This wasn't the first time he said that. At first, I was trying to brush it off. I don't like letting those things get to me, but I remember once I heard him yell that, and I got so angry.
"You tranny."
Yeah, dude.
"Hey, you tranny."
Say it again. I heard you. Say it again. What makes you think that you have the right to use that word? How'd you feel if I was calling you names across the room so everyone could hear? Yeah, so why don't you apologize to me?
Sorry.
I don't think anyone heard you. You could say tranny pretty easily, but you can't say sorry that easily.
I'm sorry I called you a tranny.
Fine.
There was another incident in a washroom when someone told me, "I feel uncomfortable with you being here because you were born a girl." I felt almost attacked, like he's confronting me, he's questioning my gender. It really, really impacted me. I think he doesn't understand that he is discriminating because he says I'm a boy, but he obviously doesn't think I am.
Tranny.
At first, it was terrifying, and I felt extremely vulnerable and scared, and I didn't know what to say. As time went on and I gained experience dealing with any forms of harassment, it's become easier, and it's helped me build confidence in my identity. I actually joined a group that was dedicated to transgender youth. It was a really great way to connect with others who knew my struggle, because while I did have supportive friends and supportive family, no one could really relate to me, and I think that's a key thing in feeling more confident about yourself, is finding people you can connect to about it and someone who can share your experience on one level or another. I try to build bonds with people. I've had kids in my school, they're just sitting there, and I come up and start talking to them, and I've had friends who are on the verge of suicide, and because they've had someone to talk to, it's prevented them, and they're able to go on because they have that support. Communicating with each other and saying what you need, and having someone come up to you who's not necessarily in a place of authority, but just a friend, can be life-saving. It can be extremely valuable. Sometimes people tell me, I find it hard to adjust to calling you he versus previously calling you she. And I tell them, for you, I'm one person in your life who you need to adjust. And for me, this is my life all the time. People come and go in your life, but you're living with yourself 24/7. So you have to be your #1 advocate. Be true to yourself. You really gotta be your #1 fan. Nowadays, things are going pretty well. I think my mental health has definitely improved. A year ago, I honestly wasn't sure if I was gonna get through grade 9. I was suicidal, I was self-harming. Nowadays, I'm feeling confident about my future. I have a great support base in terms of my friends. I have a girlfriend. I think that things are definitely looking better. I'm feeling to be more confident in myself. Even just the other day, I found myself faced with harassment from a stranger.
Hey kid, are you a boy or a girl?
I'd rather not answer that, rather just be alone if you don't mind.
I realized that I don't owe this person anything. That's something very important for people to remember, is that they need to stand up for themselves. Don't ever bottle up. That's the worst thing you can do to yourself. I used to cut. That was obviously not a healthy outlet. While it may provide relief in the moment, honestly, it's just gonna destroy you, and it's gonna put you into a whole other cycle of problems. The The people that I've mentioned before that have given me a hard time in high school, they've had some sort of challenges in their lives, and that definitely doesn't excuse them being mean to me, but I sort of try to empathize on one level just to understand, because it's not coming out of pure hatred. It's sometimes stemming from their own issues. It's so important for people to realize that sometimes even the smallest things they say can really impact someone's life. I've had someone yell a slur at me in the hall, and for them, it's just a slur. It's not a big deal. They go on with their day, but for me, that slur stuck with me, and I'm still here with it now. It's just so important to remember to always accept everyone and respect people's identities. A great way, I think, to respect someone's identity, gender specifically, is to ask them what pronouns they prefer, because I know that they're taking the time to really confirm and make sure that they're going to respect me in a way where I'm going to feel safe and comfortable. Just keep in mind that life goes on, and you may be in a really, really difficult situation right now, and it probably feels impossible to get through. It feels hopeless, and so many people feel that way. You're not alone. That's the big one. I would really encourage youth to go out and try to find someone who can be there to support them and feel like you have someone who you can lean on. I'm living in a world that can be harsh for transgender people. So my parents, they have a choice. They can either kick me out and make me go deal with that harshness on my own, or they can love me and they can accept me and be the shoulder for me to cry on. Me being transgender is not all that I am. I have so much more to me. I've got shorter hair, they call me David, but I'm still the same kid. I've got the same personality, the same ideas and feelings. I'm just more comfortable.
I was very happy to see that he was able to find out who he was, I want to say, so early in life.
He's probably happier because he was able to figure it out, because I know there are people who maybe they're just not in a situation where they feel comfortable, and then as you get older, I think it gets harder and harder and harder.
He's also really lucky in that his parents were so accepting. Not everybody has parents like that, and I think he's incredibly lucky to have that kind of support.
People who are questioning in their own lives, whether, be transgender or something else, they can realize what they are sooner because there's these role models out there.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's less that there are suddenly more people who are queer or suddenly more people who are trans. It's just that they feel more comfortable to express themselves.
Throughout history, they've always been there. It's just that we haven't seen them as much because there was such a stigmatism. So now that kind of the education is happening and the stigmatism is kind of going away, it's become people are more comfortable, and that's why you see more people.
When you don't fit in anywhere, you're kind of just all alone. You can talk to your parents and they will try, but then a lot of the time it's just not the same as having someone your own age to speak to. And if you do and they're just not supportive of it, you're gonna feel all alone. You're gonna just end up waking up, going to school, coming back home, being by yourself all day in your own head. And you'll end up doing a lot of things that you shouldn't do.
When you see your peers struggling with something like this, you have to be even more supportive and more helpful, and to try to find ways to help the situation.
That's why it's so important to have support systems in place at schools, like having the LGBTQ support groups. Because if your parents aren't there for you, then you need somewhere else to go.
I've been in all gendered washrooms. My high school actually opened an all gendered washroom, and I had no problems at all with it. I've never experienced anything wrong with it. No one I know has experienced anything wrong with it.
It's a personal thing. You go to the washroom and then you leave. It doesn't really matter who else is in there.
My best friend is actually a trans boy. I was there when he decided to make it totally public. Being there as he sort of came to terms with himself and just becoming comfortable enough to share that with everybody else was really cool and really empowering too.
Yeah.
When you were born, the doctor assigned you a gender. Boy if you have a penis, and girl if you have a vagina. That's it, end of story. But this labeling of boy and girl only considers what's going on externally. It doesn't tell the whole story. It doesn't take into consideration how someone experiences and expresses themselves, and how this identity shapes their relationships with the people and world around them. David's story illustrates that even at a very young age, one can start identifying as the opposite sex, despite their physical appearance. This can be confusing, scary, and even painful if the person does not have the right support. So why would the brain behave this way? Well, the truth of the matter is that the science is fairly new in this area of research, and it would be unfair and premature to make big conclusive remarks. However, what we do know is that identifying as the opposite sex is not a form of mental illness or a mistake. So let's learn how we can support the person and each other by being empathetic and compassionate. Being empathetic means taking the time to imagine what it would be like to live in another person's shoes in hopes of understanding what they might be thinking or feeling. And being compassionate means caring enough about the person to do something about their well-being. The more we practice being empathetic, the more compassionately we start acting. We have to train our brain muscles to think and act this way. You can use these muscles to advocate for yourself and for others. Your identity depends on it. With that in mind, until the next time, let's do better by thinking better.
The concept of gender identity has been a rising topic in the media over the last few years, but that doesn't mean that there still isn't a lot of prejudice and misinformation floating around. Transgender youth have a higher rate of attempting suicide than other youth. Thankfully, David found the support and confidence he needed to show the world who he really was. This remarkable young man now helps other youth deal with their own issues. We'll all have times in life where someone doesn't accept a part of who we are. But whether it's a disagreement about religion, politics, sexual orientation, or gender, it's important to remember that no one thing makes you, you. We're all made up of a mix of our experiences, thoughts, feelings, and ideals. We owe everyone the same kindness and respect we'd like for ourselves. We all deserve to be happy.